Welcome, American literature friends. This video is a guide through the reading and assignment schedule and through the D2L modules. So you see the reading and assignment schedule here. This is within the syllabus, and it will give you the dates of the readings and the work. But I'm going to, in this video, jump between the reading and assignment schedule, that schedule, and the actual modules and sort of connect those two dots to give you a sense of what the work of the class is going to look like too. So we're going to go through the schedule, but as we go through the schedule, we're going to talk about the graded work too, which I know is the pressing matter for most students. Especially here at the beginning of the semester, you want to know what the work of the class is going to be like. So I'm going to go through the schedule, and then I'm going to connect that back to this right here, to these modules here on the left that you see. And so what I want to do first, the reading and assignment schedule, this class is designed so that August 11th is an introduction to the course and the timelines, a list of the themes for the class. It's really designed for you to watch these 2 or 3 videos and just get acquainted with the class. And then at the end of that first week, beginning on August 13th, this class is organized as if we were meeting 2 days a week, and those 2 days are set up as Tuesday and Thursday, because you get first part of the week, second part of the week, and that lets us avoid the Labor Day holiday and the carryover from that, which is the last day of the semester, which is a Monday. But since we're doing Tuesdays, this schedule is set up for Tuesday and Thursday, we miss both the Labor Day interruption and that carryover last Monday in November, which is the Monday of Thanksgiving week. That said, the work of this class starts on August 13th with Mary Rowlandson. Mary Rowlandson wrote a famous narrative of the captivity and restoration. She was taken prisoner by Native Americans in central Massachusetts and held as a captive for 10 weeks, 2.5 months in the spring. And so we're going to read her entire narrative of the captivity and restoration. And we're going to flow forward from there, from the 1600s into the 17 and 1800s with Washington Irving and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and into the 1800s with Frederick Douglass, narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, the most famous slave narrative in this country, Edgar Allan Poe, Henry David Thoreau. We will get to the 20th century with Jack London and Upton Sinclair as we transition from September into October, and then we will spend the rest of the semester in the 20th century and then the 21st century where we are now, because we will go in the 1920s with Hurston and Faulkner and Hemingway, and then into the 1950s and 1960s with John Cheever and Gwendolyn Brooks, and then into the 1980s with Toni Morrison, and the 1990s, and George Saunders is still alive today. And so by the time we get to November, we will be working with material Saunders and Billy Collins and Jhumpa Lahiri by living American writers. And so that gives you a sense of the timeline of the class and the chronology we're going to cover. The important dates, though, the fixed dates for work for this class are these fixed dates. They are September 1st, which is the first exam. For every exam, you will have at least 24 hours to complete it. And so I believe September 1st is a Tuesday. And so what will happen is sometime Monday afternoon or Monday evening, I'll make exam 1 visible. And when I make it visible, it will be in here where it says guidelines and exams. And you click this, you click it open there where it says guideline and exams, and you will see exam 1 is in there, exam 2 is in there, and exam 3, the final exam, is in there right here. And so I will make those visible at the relevant time and give you at least 24 hours to complete those exams. But those exam dates are exam 1 here on September 1st, and then exam number 2 here on September 24th, because this class is designed for us to take these 2 exams and get them out of the way before September is over. And then that is because when you get to, there's 2 important dates in early November, and those dates are Response Paper Forgiveness Day. This is a makeup day where you can make up one of the response papers, and I'll get to that in just a moment. And then the research paper is due on November 12th. That is one of the 4 fixed dates for us. The research paper is finally due on that date. the materials for the research paper will be visible to you all semester, but it is finally due on November 12th. And I can jump over, you will see here, the material for the research paper is down here at the bottom where it says research paper guidelines and information. There will be a whole separate distinct video for the research paper that will be visible to you. But you see right there, there's a guidelines video, and then some instructions and some sample research papers, a couple of different options, a citation guide. So there's a whole module devoted to the research paper. But that is one of the fixed dates. And then the last fixed date is Friday, December 4th, which is the college's mandated date for the final exam for online classes. And so you will have at least like Thursday and Friday of that week after Thanksgiving to take the final exam. And so those are the fixed dates for work for this class. There are 4 of them. They are September 1st for the first exam, September 24th for that second exam, the research paper day, which is November 12th, and then the final exam, which is due on Friday, December 4th. But again, you'll have at least 24 hours to complete all of those. So like for the final exam, it will almost certainly be visible to you Thursday and Friday. This Thursday the 3rd, Friday, December 4th. So you will have, if you've got to work that morning, well, you can do it that night. You got to work that night, you're working second or third shift, all right, then you come and do it that morning or that afternoon. And if you need some extra time because you've got some kind of conflict, you'll be in touch with me and we'll figure it out. Those are the fixed dates. And if you look at the grade breakdown, that is 45% of the work, 30% for those 3 exams, and then the other 15 for the research paper. So that's about roughly half of the grades for this class. The other half, and I'm going to scroll down and jump away from this for just a second here. The other 50% here, 50% of this class is these response papers, this 50% right here. And so I'm going to jump for a second, like I said in time, I'm going to roll back up to the schedule. But if you jump over here, you will see that down under that first module that is guidelines and exams, what happens, close that up, and what you will see is weeks. Week of August 10th through the 14th. And that gives you Mary Rowlandson. You've got Mary Rowlandson here on the 13th, and that first piece of Mary Rowlandson is going to be in here with a video to guide you through the reading as if we were in class and I was talking to you about it. And then here's a link to the reading. You'll see if you click on it. All right, there's narrative of the captivity of Mary Rowlandson. And then down below that, often in these, when I've been able to find one, I have tried to find an audio reading so that if you don't want to read this, you can pop this open and somebody will read it to you. Another resource that is under here, the 50% though, the 50% of the graded work is everything that we're going to read has a response paper option. And as we go through the semester, you need to pick 5 of these and write the response. They tell you here, it gives you a prompt. In this case, how does Mary Rowlandson shape her experience through biblical stories and theology? Christianity and religion is very important to her. You get a lot of that as you read her. But down here it says, we're going to read, this text is from August 13th through the 20th. That's when it's on this reading and assignment schedule. Again, you jump over to the schedule. Okay, 13th through the 20th right here. And then if you want to write this paper, it is due Tuesday, August 25th. And it needs to be around 550 words, 550 to 700 or 800 words, somewhere in that there. That 550 words is just a suggestion. It's really a minimum suggested length. You need to keep it between 550 and like 900 words. But as we go through this semester, there is a response paper option for everything that we're going to read, and you need to pick 5. You don't need to do all of them. You couldn't do all of them unless this is the only class that you're taking. Please don't do all of them because I don't want to read 15 extra papers. Because if you did all of them, you would write about 20 papers, and you don't need to do that. You need to pick the 5 that you want to write. You will pick your 5, as we go through the semester. And as you see right here, you will close up Mary Rowlandson. We'll jump into the week of August 17th through the 21st. There's Mary Rowlandson, the second portion of it. And then August 24th through the 28th, we'll jump ahead to Washington Irving and Rip Van Winkle and Nathaniel Hawthorne. And Young Goodman Brown is the story of Hawthorne that we're going to read. But you see here, Irving has course video, the link to the reading, and then an Irving response paper. This is and the Irving response paper, the date has not been updated yet, but it'll be fixed. I somehow missed that one, and I apologize for that. It'll be fixed before the time you get there. But it will get you to the right date. And so those dates will be right and fixed for you. And so they will always correspond to, they will tell you, all right, on August 25th, we will read Rip Van Winkle, and then on August 27th, the paper will be due. On August 27th, we'll read Young Goodman Brown. All right, that paper will be due September 3rd. They're never going to be due on an exam day, because I want you to focus on your exams. We'll read the Poe stuff on September 8th and 10th, and then the Poe response paper will be due on September 15th. As we go through the semester, as I said, you just pick the 5 that you want to do. They will count 10% apiece. There are guidelines for the response papers within here, built in here. But the response papers are pretty simple. What I'm grading for on them is, because they're between 550 and 800 words, you need a title for the paper that tells me what you're going to write about or talk about. You need a first paragraph that tells me the thesis, the point you're going to prove about the story or the poems, whatever the reading is. Don't talk to me about it or just summarize the plot, but prove some kind of point to it to me. And then the second portion that I'm really grading for is the body of the paper uses specific examples and details from the text to support your thesis from the first paragraph. So you tell me what you want to prove about the paper, and then you spend the rest, you tell me what you want to prove about the story or the poems, and then you spend the rest of the paper proving it to me with examples, sentences, and details from whatever we're going to read. So thesis, evidence to support that thesis, that's what I'm grading for on these response papers. As you see right here, that is the basic flow of the course. We will roll through here. When you turn in work, you will email it to me. And the exams say this, but when you turn in work, you will email it to me at my Highlands email address. You will simply drop an email in. You will open an Outlook in email, hopefully if you're using Outlook, but obviously Gmail or anything else will work fine too, although your school email is your safest bet. But you will drop it in and you will email it to me at jsullins@highlands.edu. You'll say exam 1 for American literature, send it to me as attachment. I'll read it, grade it, email it back to you, and that's how. And then I'll drop your grade into the grade book as well, the D2L grade book, and that's how we'll move through the semester and turn in work. That is most of the work for this class. Again, I'm gonna scroll back down. I apologize if you're watching this and it's making you dizzy. It always annoys me when people do a bunch of scrolling back and forth quickly. But I'm going to jump back down to the reading and assignment schedule. That is the basic work of this class. That is the reading and assignment schedule. We're going to go through here and read, and then we will. I also want to explain to you very briefly about the exams. The exams cover whatever we've read up to then. And so the first exam covers Mary Rowlandson, Washington Irving, and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and then exam 1. And the exams all have the same format, right down to they have 2 halves, and they have the exact same instructions for each of the 3 exams. The first half is about terminology, and you will explain a term and then connect it to something that we've read. So the first terms will connect to Mary Rowlandson or Irving or Hawthorne. And then the second half of each exam is quotes, and you will identify the quote and explain why it's significant, why it's important, what's going on. And so the first exam will cover Rowlandson and Irving and Hawthorne, and then the second exam covers Frederick Douglass, Edgar Allan Poe, Thoreau, Ambrose Bierce, and Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So essentially the 1800s is that second exam. That second exam covers most of its material that's roughly the 1800s. And same thing, it covers terminology and quotes. And then the final exam is not cumulative. It simply starts with Jack London and goes forward. It is the final exam, I will say, is a little bit longer. You'll have 8 answers. For the exam 1 and exam 2, you will have 5 answers. You will have 3 terms and 2 quotes. The final exam has 4 quotes and 4 terms. So it's a little bit longer, but the instructions are exactly the same. The format's exactly the same. There is also built in a response paper forgiveness day on November 5th. And what that is for is if you get to November and you and you've only got 3 response papers left that you could turn in, you can't get to your 5 because it's November and there's only 3 things left. Response paper forgiveness day is a day when you can go back and pick one response paper from the past that you missed and turn it in late. You can go back. You get there and you think, man, I wish I had written that Jack London to build a fire response paper, but I just got busy that week. All right, go back and turn it in, and that will get you an extra one. Because again, if you notice over here on, for example, with Mary Rowlandson, to go back to her, you click on the response paper option, and after August 25th, it's gone. You can't turn that paper in anymore unless you decide to do that on November 5th for Response Paper Forgiveness Day. But Response Paper Forgiveness Day is only good for one paper. You get one forgiveness, one opportunity to go back in time and do one paper. And so the papers, though, are designed to, once we are past the due date, they're gone. They're not an option anymore. So you've got to flow through the class and keep up with the readings just to know which response papers you want to turn in and get them turned in. They're usually going to be due on the next day. So like Alice Walker, the everyday use Alice Walker response is that's set up to be read on the 27th. The paper will be due on the 29th. The Raymond Carver, a small good thing paper, that's set up to be read somewhere around the 29th. Paper's due 11/3, that November 3rd, that next carryover Tuesday. George Saunders, you see we're going to read Civil War Land in Bad Decline on November 10th. Well, the research paper's due, so that won't be due until November 17th, the next day that's not devoted to an exam or a research paper or something like that. When we get to the end of the semester, the Jhumpa Lahiri response is due, since there's no class day after that, it's due a couple of days later into like the Monday, which I believe is the 23rd, that Monday, which is the last day of classes. And so then all the response papers will be done by the time we get to the final exam. You'll be done with all work except for the final exam. That is the work of this course. That is the schedule. You will do the readings. Roughly, you should try to roughly stick to our schedule of readings. Read Mary Rowlandson, be reading through Mary Rowlandson, the 8:13 through 8:20, and then early in the week of 8:24, you'll be into Washington Irving and Rip Van Winkle. Late at the end of that week, you'll be dealing with Young Goodman Brown. None of the things that we are reading for this course are tremendously long or tremendously difficult, especially once we get past right around Thoreau is a little bit difficult, a little bit dense, but we get past Thoreau, we'll be right there getting into the 20th century, and the readings and the work for this class are simply fairly short, fairly simple, fairly easy to read. One of the things that I have done over the years is I've read this is cut things that students are like, this is just too hard to read. This is too hard to take a test over. This is too hard to write a paper about. That's just not working for college sophomores. So let's read The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a famous text from the 1890s, and students almost always, and if they don't enjoy it, they at least understand it and respond to it. Same thing with like To Build a Fire, or Chapter 9 from Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, which is about working in the Chicago stockyards. The terminology for the class that is on the exams, you scroll down past your weekly readings, and down here at the bottom is all of the course terminology. So all the terms you will need for this course, they're dropped down in here. with the definitions and information. The research paper information is down in here. And so everything you need for the class is either in your weekly modules, or the exams are up here at the top where it says guidelines and exams. They will be made visible to you when it's appropriate, when we get to those days. And then the research paper information, guidelines and information, and the course terminology is down here below the weekly modules. You will need that terminology for the exams, and possibly also for the research paper, depending on which research paper option you decide to use. Please don't hesitate to be in touch with me if you've got questions about the schedule or the work within that schedule, the flow of the schedule and the readings, or the flow of the work. Please don't hesitate to be in touch with me. But I look forward to reading y'all's work and hearing from you and answering any questions that you might have. Again, welcome to Fall 2026 American Literature.